I've been thinking about this a lot, and it generally still shocks me how much people don't save their money. And I say that, but there was a time when I didn't save my money either. Until something happened to me that made me completely change the way I think about money and how I manage money. So I kind of wanted to share this story with you today. Now, a long time ago, I was living month to month, which I imagine a lot of people do. And whatever money I had for that month would absolutely pay my bills and make sure rent was paid and insurance and anything else you can think of. And then whatever other money I had, I'd see that in my available to spend when you check your bank, check your accounts, and cool. That's what I'm spending this month, whether it's games, clothes, takeaways, trips, whatever. Living a nice life, living a normal life, nothing too lavish. And that's how I lived for years. I was never taught the importance of saving money or how to manage money through education. And I don't think they do that even now. I don't think it's an education. I wasn't taught it from my parents. My parents weren't wealthy people. They weren't poor, but they both worked. But I think they lived in that same way, month to month. Whatever money they had left after bills and rent would go on us or go on food, and then they'd start again the next month. And I think that still exists to that day for most people. That's just norm, living month to month. And that's what I did. And I lived a comfortable life. I was happy. I was content. And I had a stable job. I had everything I wanted around me, whether it's people, friends, relationships, possessions, whatever it was, and life was good. And one day, out of nowhere, life decided to throw a curveball. Life just took that rug and pulled it out from underneath me. And basically, I lost my job. Just for no reason. I didn't do anything wrong. I don't really understand. They came up with reasons why I was no longer needed, but they didn't make sense. I'd been working for the company for about a year and a half at the time. And the current employment law at the time was if it's a smaller company and it's less than 2 years, there's nothing you can do about it. So that was that. I can remember walking home thinking, how am I going to manage? So next month, that pay I'm going to get, that's the last one. And then after that, there's no other pay coming in. How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to keep a roof over my head? How am I going to eat? And all these things were just flooding in my head. Absolute sheer panic came over me. How am I going to manage? And I didn't have the answer. I was more stressed than I can imagine, than I can express during words. It was horrible. It was a horrible situation to suddenly find yourself in. I think I had about 300 in my account, and that was fine because I was going to get paid again, right? Yeah, that was a tough time, and it got tougher. No, let me tell you, I really struggled to look for work. There just was nothing around at the time. I can remember staying up till 2-3 o'clock every morning because I'd rather be up scouring job websites and applying for jobs than sleep. And I can remember having to make every little pound penny stretch. I lost weight. I dropped 1.5 stone from just not eating much. I had to make lots of changes. I remember going through my finances and thinking, right, let's cut the crap. What can I get rid of? So, things I don't need. So I had a rule, which is if I need it, it stays. If I want it, it goes. So things like a gym membership or subscriptions to, like a Netflix subscription. Don't need those things. Gone. So I trimmed everything back as far as I could. So I only paid for what I had to. So it's like your rent, keep the roof over your head. Have to do that. Food, I got to eat. Bills that I needed. So a phone. To be able to find work, I needed a phone. So, that's how I did it. I cut the stuff off, thinking I can get that stuff back later when I'm okay. This went on for 3 months before I ended up back in employment. And at the time, it was difficult because jobs have changed the way they hire people now. Now it's before you could just apply for a job and you're like, are you free? Can you start next week? Sure. Now jobs have cut-off points. So they'll advertise a job, but they won't even look at the applications for another month because they give everyone a fair chance to apply. And then they will have a period where they go through all the applications. It could be 6 weeks. And I didn't have 6 weeks. I ended up having to swallow my pride and ask family if I could borrow money, and they didn't because they also didn't save. They didn't have money behind them. I had to go on benefits for a while, which I hated, but I did it because that's what they're there for. It's a system I'd paid into through taxes, and now I needed it back, but it wasn't enough to make ends meet, hence the losing weight. Anyway, 3 months later, I got myself back into a decent job, a good job, and even then I couldn't just start. I had to go through security checks, and there was all this pre-employment checks that had to be done. It was a long, long road to get to that first pay. And even then, I wasn't really back on my feet to my second or third pay. But during that time of not having that regular income, I had learned how to look after money better. I'd learned how to manage money better, to go through your bank statements and actually have a look at what are you actually spending? Where is your money going? Things like gym memberships that you'd forgotten about that's coming out of your account. Things like online subscriptions to things you haven't used for months and you've just forgotten about them because they're a small amount. Trust me, those amounts over a long period of time, they add up. They do add up, and if there's the first bit of advice in this, it's go through your accounts and see what your money's actually going, see where it's going, and see if there's anything you can stop. That's already saving you money. That's number one. I learned how to budget. I had made myself a spreadsheet on Excel. I used a spreadsheet. And I made a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet would have everything listed of my outgoing. So my rent, bills, and then have a total. So I knew exactly what my outgoing was for the month. And then I'd put in whatever money I've got for that month. And then I would know after everything what's spare. And then I could type in how many days left for the month. And it would tell me, this is what you've got left for the month. This is what you got left as a daily spend. And then while I wasn't employed, that's what I was living on. And I can remember the number. It was £9. That's what I had to live off. That had to do my breakfast, lunch, dinner, travel expenses, and other things that you don't account for per day. That's what I was living off, hence why I lost weight. I realised when I got back into employment, I decided to carry on doing that. Like, I'm not just going to go back into old ways and old habits. What I went through was horrible. But I remember telling myself something, and I still do this to this day. I will never, ever allow life to do that to me again. I will never, as long within whatever is possible of my control, I will not allow myself to be in that situation where I've got nothing. Because I realised you can't rely on people, and you can't rely on systems that are in place. You can only rely on you. And so I needed to make some changes. So not only did I learn how to manage my money better that I decided there and then, I'm going to save. I'm going to make sure I've got money behind me so that can never happen to me again. So if ever I lost my job again, which shouldn't happen, but say if it did, I wouldn't have to go through that again. I am going to protect myself from that happening. And so I made more changes. So rather than setting an amount, I'm going to put £50 away every month. And you absolutely can do that. You can set yourself an amount, and every month you put that same amount away. That's a good way to save. What I did is I carried on using my spreadsheet that I had made that worked out everything I've got to pay out for the month, what I have left over, and then a budget if you want to see per day or per week what you can spend to last you to the end of the month. And that's a good way of doing it. But I realised then what was happening once I had money is if it says you can spend this much per day or per week, you then spend that much because you know you can. But the trouble is you get to the end of the month and you've spent everything, and then you start the next month. So I changed it. I started only spending what I needed to, and I wasn't being tight. Like I went back to living a comfortable lifestyle, but the difference I made is whatever was spare at the end of the month, I moved into a savings account. That's it. Simple rule. So if I got to the end of the month and I had 200 left, instead of just wasting it, I'd put it into a savings account. And here was rule number 2. Whatever goes into this savings account doesn't exist. It doesn't come back out. It's gone. And I start the next month. And I did that for X amount of months. And I can remember, I don't remember the exact amount of months, but I can remember a time that I checked and I hit my first goal, 1,000. And I can remember how good that felt. I had never had that just in an account before, just sitting there for no reason. But now I did. That was good. But it wasn't enough. If that situation was to ever repeat itself again, I would need more than that. And that inspired me and motivated me to keep saving. Keep going. Get to 2,000. Get to 5,000. Can you get to 10? To be honest with you, you can get to any figure you want. But I kept going, and I kept going. And I can remember then one day, I reached a point where I checked a savings account and went, do you know what? If I lost my job today, I'd be okay. I actually now wouldn't be able to go through what I went through before, because I have now protected myself. And in my situation, yeah, I lost a job. I was dismissed from my job. But there are loads of things that can happen in your life that are completely unexpected. I think it's too easy to become complacent and to take things for granted, whether that be the home that you're currently living in, the job that you have, or a relationship that you're in. The truth is, and the cold truth is, that anything can be taken from you at any time, whether that's intentionally or not intentionally, but everything can be taken from you. And you need to make sure that if something is taken from you, that you are going to be okay. And I firmly believe that saving and having money behind you is the key to protecting yourself. Financial protection. Now, I'm not going to talk about other things you can do, like investing, trading, stocks. Now, I do that stuff. I've taught myself how to do that. And it's one of my bugbears that this stuff isn't taught to people, that I have had to go away and learn this stuff myself. And I've done very well. But there are new generations of kids growing up, and they don't know how to even do the basics of just saving, because it's not taught to them, like it wasn't taught to me. And it's like we're just not learning our lessons. And I guess that's kind of the point of why I'm making this video today, to tell this story, because maybe one person might watch this video and decide, you know what, I'm going to do that. And then maybe one day something's taken from them and they don't have to go through what I went through. They've stopped that from happening by just simply saving their money. That's where the expression comes from, saving for a rainy day, because you never know when it's going to rain. You just don't know what's around the corner. And that's why saving is so important. It's so important to make sure that you've got that behind you, just so you know you're going to be okay. And I tell you what, I sleep better at night, and I have always slept better at night knowing that I have that financial stability, that I have that financial security behind me to know that I'm going to be okay. Now, again, I'm not going to go into what type of accounts you should use, and there's various different types of savings accounts. Do you know what? Just to start with, just open whatever bank you're with, just open up a savings account. And it can be either one where you can put money in and take money out. It can be one where once it goes in, it's locked. There are so many different types. But even if it's a basic one that you can move money in and out, just make sure you have a rule. Once it goes in, unless it's an emergency, like an actual emergency, it does not come back out. It doesn't. And you watch that money grow. And I promise you, as you're seeing that money grow and you hit various milestones, it will make you feel really good. It will give you a sense of well-being. It will make you feel proud of yourself. But it will also be a sense of relief to know that you'll be okay. And I hope that you will be okay. I hope that no one has to go through that horrible experience I went through. But I hope after hearing this, you do realise that saving money is not just one of those boring conversations you hear older people talk about, because younger people don't talk about saving. It's actually really important. And it doesn't matter the amount either. You don't have to put hundreds or thousands away if you can't afford to. Even if you just put 10 or 20 away. Whatever you can afford to put away without financially hurting yourself, put it away. Save it. But yeah, I think that's it for this video. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.